YouTube comments from a video titled, Why Society Changed Forever After COVID. Part 7.
At envision_embody_become wrote.
COVID was amazing. I was locked up, money up, spirits up. I loved it so much. Truly a unique period of time. But that's just my perspective. I know a lot of people were not riding like that. I'm grateful to have this perspective.
At Joey Gaming 4702 wrote.
Being a senior during COVID was like living in a live-action music video of two songs. First, it was Grove Street. Party then, it was In the End.
At Lesson Tobe wrote.
I am a baby boomer. This was a very interesting conversation from younger people's point of view. The Gen Zs are very different, very likely, due to the scandemic. Nowadays, I feel particularly bad for young children.
Call Me Rosie May wrote.
I get the going out alone thing. Like, in college, I've really struggled to make friends, so I do pretty much everything alone. I figured out that walking to Waffle House at 2 a.m. totally works for me just to people watch and enjoy.
At Bilbo Faggins 9136 wrote.
I think the guy saying people are more rude post-COVID. I don't even think it's a black thing like Amir was wondering. Personally, I think it's the ghetto people of all races. They have all gotten more dog-eat-dog and rude post-COVID for sure.
A Better Love Movement wrote.
I refuse to stay at home. Okay. I kept my business open. I went out every day to the grocery store, Walmart, Home Depot. If it was open, I went there. I did not get the vaccine and was all but ostracized by friends and family. I loved it.
At Saradi 2844 wrote.
I quit drinking in 2020, 5 years plus sober now. I also flipped my entire life upside down in 2023 after years of deep self-reflection and finally feel free. It was a crazy time, but the growth was real.
At Mother Elephant 5537 wrote.
There were a lot of, I don't knows in school. Drove me nuts. But I graduated in 04, and after about 4th grade, people are too embarrassed to speak. I don't know is easy.
At Lazy Shadow 24 wrote.
As someone who worked retail the entire pandemic, it was very lonely. I got engaged and married in 2020. Moved from my hometown in 2020. But me, I was an assistant manager at a big corporation at the time, and my husband worked on tugboats, were deemed essential. So the world was gray and sad for me outside of the major events. The people were 1,000,000 excesses more rude and disrespectful, and the job was never ending with demands from the higher-ups about mask mandates, vaccine mandates, and many other issues. Sometimes I barely remember that timeline because it was such a blur. And side note, my wedding abided by all COVID mandates at the time.
The Saint Questions wrote.
I took a lot of pictures and stuff. Since I would walk my dog, which I had before the lockdown, and still have. And it was a scary time. But I mean, there were some good times, too.
At LTLMSCRL wrote.
I work in healthcare and never got to experience lockdown. It's interesting to see how much it changed the world for others. All COVID did for me was make me more conscious of diseases I could breathe in without a mask.
Joe RJ5UO wrote.
There are only two kinds of people in the entire world. The vaccinated and the unvaccinated. The vaccinated blindly obey, without questioning those in supposed positions of authority, and the unvaccinated who question everything from everyone, not trusting anyone with their health and welfare. Ebola has killed as many as 90% of the people it infects. Whereas I was expected to take an experimental vaccine, which every test animal died in the testing stage, because I had a 0.2% chance of death. I do not blindly obey anyone. The Ebola vaccine is highly tested, has no mRNA, and has a high success rate. I would take this vaccine based on my own research.
Kiss of Envy wrote,
Lockdown wasn't too much different from how I lived my normal life. I would either be gaming or making music. Only real difference was not going out to see friends as much, but most of them had gotten sick at one point, and I was trying not to so fare. I wasn't really affected by it like most people were for some reason. On the contrary, it was quite enjoyable sometimes as I had more time for meditation, self-reflection and stuff of that nature.
Ed Abdiot1MR wrote,
I was a young mom with toddlers when COVID hit. It was honestly amazing. I went from working full-time to becoming a stay-at-home mom due to losing my job and not having daycare for my children. 5 years later, and I've modified my entire life to be able to work less and be home more for my kids because of the impact that COVID had on my family for the positive.
At Loranoajovic 4675 wrote,
What I see more in regards to kids not thinking for themselves is rooted in pragmatic language. They don't do things like make inferences, justify, or even understand how they come to conclusions, problem solve, think outside the box, etc. I feel like this is especially prominent in kids who attend online school and don't interact with their peers in after-school activities like sports.
A Jadeserfant wrote,
Independent thinking requires logic and critical thinking skills. It requires research, open debate, and a willingness to listen to opposing ideas without feeling threatened, attacked, triggered, or devolving into name-calling. Those kinds of skills have to be taught and nurtured. I can tell you from experience that the public school system does not teach them and, on multiple occasions, actively tried to discourage me from teaching them to my kids. I did anyway. Cause I'm cranky that way. Love.
Talking to Myself wrote,
100% on the manners issue. I am a care provider and was an essential worker during C, and I can tell you I literally watched the change in real time. People were openly scared and acted out if you got near them. Doors were no longer held. Others were openly hostile about how close you were or how much stuff was in your basket. I was shopping for elderly neighbors because of their fear. Let's not get into the TP thing. Manners are an afterthought with a tiny world of agreement in your hand too. IMO. Interaction not requited.
Kikachu wrote,
People are going out just to take a video showing they went out. When I go out to a bar or another third space, I just see groups taking photos, videos, zero social skills. Gym, restaurants, bars, etc. It's weird. I always go out alone, it's so nice.
At Amelia Jane 1999 wrote,
Worked retail during the mask mandate. The amount of times I was called to see you next Tuesday, B*TCH, and N*Xi, because I had to follow store policy and enforce the rule onto our guests. Many acted like it was my idea, and I am the devil walking among us. And don't get me started on the damn Constitution.
At Azurumi wrote,
COVID was a net gain for me, personally and professionally, despite losing scores of former friends who called themselves my sisters, despite being silenced and muzzled and forced to quit my job. The distrust in all connections, besides those of strangers, was profound for me. Family, friends, coworkers, experts, institutions. I was taught that people will align with tribe over values and soul connections, and 20 years can be deleted just like that if the dogma isn't swallowed and followed to the T.
Diana Lopez 130 wrote,
1710 I can say I have felt this. As a server, you always watch people's behavior and it's a mixed bag. Most people are decent, but I get pissed when I'm doing my introduction and customers just walk past you. They ignore you and sit wherever they want. I started working in customer service in 2019 and between then and now. People have changed a lot.
Gen_86 wrote,
It was really weird being considered essential during COVID. Other people got paid more than you to just stay home and got to spend time bettering themselves and their families. But you had to work your ass off with zero gratitude, zero pay benefits, and deal with the insanity on top of constantly worrying about possibly getting sick on a weird level. I feel kind of robbed.
As She Believes 9650 wrote,
Millions died. Millions lost their jobs. Hundreds of thousands of businesses permanently closed. Drug abuse went up. Alcoholic abuse went up. Abuse went up. Suicide went up. Depression went up. An entire generation of kids were harmed from the shutdowns. Forced experimental vaccines were pushed on us. Many had bad reactions and died. The forced masks, the forced social distancing, the report your neighbors who weren't following guidelines. It was a self-made disaster of epic proportions.
Zavinach Yek 8811 wrote,
I used to be terrified to go places alone. Now I have a 3-year-old and I would give a kidney to go anywhere alone, even the toilet.
Gen_86 wrote,
It's not just a black thing with the rudeness. Almost no one has manners or a basic understanding of personal space. My introverted ass hated dealing with people before COVID, but now I need at least 3 business days to recover from all the entitled weirdos out there now.
Bridget Boyle 2 wrote,
I was a junior in HS and my parents were going through a divorce. It was fun. My brothers and I had so much fun every day, just the 3 of us together, getting away from all the crazy.
Pickle_Panther wrote,
2044. I work with kids at my job and I can confirm this. They don't think for themselves. They just repeat what they see online. If they're presented with new information, instead of forming their own opinions, they go on TikTok and then adopt whatever opinions on the subject that the algorithm gives to them. I know kids used to do this to an extent with their parents' opinions, but they were still challenged to form their own opinions through experience. Kids don't really experience anymore, they scroll.
14441 wrote,
Employers really have no position to stand on demanding employees back in office when many of those same employers hire remote workers in foreign countries. What is good for the goose is good for the gander.
Pickle_Panther wrote,
1850, I don't dine in at restaurants anymore because no one can behave themselves. I'm just trying to have a meal with my friend or whatever, and the folks at the next table are hooting and hollering, yelling skibbity lasagna or whatever, and getting upset that the waiter acted like a waiter instead of acting like a doting mother. They treat it like it's their living room, recording TikToks, kid on the iPad listening to brain rot at full volume, talking with food in their mouths. Manners are dead. I'd love to eat in restaurants more, but I'm tired of dealing with other people and the way they act. Same goes for a lot of activities. People just can't behave anymore, and I hate being around it. And I hate that we don't shame these folks. We just let them, companies and staff just let them. If you confront them, you're now in a TikTok that's about to go viral as a public freak-out video. It sucks so bad.
Pickle_Panther wrote,
1850, I don't dine in at restaurants anymore because no one can behave themselves. I'm just trying to have a meal with my friend or whatever, and the folks at the next table are hooting and hollering, yelling skibbity lasagna or whatever, and getting upset that the waiter acted like a waiter instead of acting like a doting mother. They treat it like it's their living room, recording TikToks, kid on the iPad listening to brain rot at full volume. Talking with food in their mouths. Manners are dead. I'd love to eat in restaurants more, but I'm tired of dealing with other people and the way they act. Same goes for a lot of activities. People just can't behave anymore, and I hate being around it. And I hate that we don't shame these folks. We just let them. Companies and staff just let them. If you confront them, you're now in a TikTok that's about to go viral as a public freak-out video. It sucks so bad.
At Rhinalisha wrote,
COVID took a lot of the social obligations out of my life, so I spent about 1,000 hours over those 2 years learning a second language. I totally feel what you mean when you say it gave people the time to grind out things. Absolute W of a time.
At MickCox8603 wrote,
Yeah, enjoyed working during lockdown. I live in Florida. And there was a lot less Karens to deal with when everyone had to either order from DoorDash or Uber.
At Nico Mimi Hearts 9784 wrote,
You want to talk about the feeling of COVID? I had announced my first pregnancy the week before lockdowns. Not even kidding. I had just posted on my Facebook so my whole family knew, a single week before everything went tits up. Having to navigate my first pregnancy with COVID was an absolute nightmare. And then, on top of that, I had my elderly grandfather living with us too. So I had people putting fear in me that I could possibly lose my baby to this illness, that I could accidentally kill my grandfather with the illness. It was so mentally traumatizing to me that I had started to pull my eyebrows out. I was 5 months pregnant when the BLM elections and everything else was happening. I became so stressed out that I had pulled a whole patch of my eyebrows out. I had to shave them off and draw them back on every day till they regrew. So all of that was absolutely awful. Then when I got pregnant with my second child in 2023, it was S-O-O-O-O-O different from my first pregnancy. Literally nothing was the same the second time around, and it was like the trauma of being pregnant during COVID all over again. A month before my second was born, I had to go to the OBGYN, not my regular doctor though. She was chatting with me casually, looked at my file, and audibly gasped BC I hadn't had any of the COVID booster shots, but also had COVID 2 months prior. When I said I didn't need them, it was my third time having it. Each time was from the hospital my grandfather was staying at. She tried to tell me I could hurt my baby if I didn't get the shots. I made an appointment to get them plus a flu vaccine, even though I didn't believe I needed any of them. When we got to Walmart to get the shots, they said what they had in stock had recently expired and we couldn't get the shots that day. I called that Luck BC, I said. Okay, never mind then. I already didn't want to get the damn things. I am so happy I didn't get the booster that day. But I know for a fact my second is in some COVID file out there. BC, he was born 2 weeks early due to him breakdancing to harden my womb and getting the cord double wrapped around his neck, so nothing to do with COVID. But the idea my baby is a part of some idiot statistics makes me so damn mad.
At a Karamatoi 4158 wrote,
Bro, that people feeling like life paused since COVID is for real. I still feel like mid-20 something. And plus, like 2018 to 2023 has been nothing but trauma for me. From losing my closest cousin in 2018, then a friend in 2019, then lockdown 2020 like 2022, damn near. Then I lost 3 uncles, granddad and my own dad from winter 2022, Xmas 2023. I just never got my shit together since. It's just been hell after hell after hell. Not to mention, he was an immunocompromised person myself and was like hella clocked down for 2 years. It was just all FKD up.
At Susan McMaster 5804 wrote,
I work at a public library and people have gotten bad. They have no social awareness and it's all about them and some are so angry. Ugh.
At Kai's 8284 wrote,
Most people stopped doing everything that involved outside. Socially stunted, I really wish they had retested everybody with a license. Stop signs and red lights just don't exist to drivers anymore, and we wonder why accident numbers are so high. I have a friend I met after the lockdowns that I've been told by others didn't change. But I also have a friend I've known since high school that didn't change since high school because he was always just transparent and kind, saying, I don't know, is a good thing when you aren't just refusing to learn things. It used to be a good thing to say you didn't know something, and now people are so adamant that you have to know and have to pick a side on this or that. And why aren't you doing what people say you need to do for my side? It's just a nightmare. We all have these worldwide boxes in our hands, but we somehow know less.
At Susan McMaster 5804 wrote,
I worked at a hospital during COVID, not patient care, and went into work every day, so I never found it any different other than less traffic. When I heard people talking about staying home and contemplating life, I couldn't relate because it was business as usual for me and my co-workers.
At Vision Hawk 4403 wrote,
Well, humans by nature are social animals. Lockdown prevented us from being social, which is against our nature. I've always been kind of a loner myself, but I look at my kids, especially my son, who graduated during lockdown, and while humans crave social interaction, they no longer know how to initiate it. I also believe it's what split us apart even more, so than we were as far as politics. Everybody was in their own echo chambers, and after so long of that, it's hard to listen to other people's opinions and thoughts because your thoughts have been affirmed for so long. My son didn't get to have prom or a normal graduation. No homecoming, and I see him struggle with that still today. People's lives were taken and everybody is trying to restart now.
At John Capewell 7520 wrote,
I got too good and too used to doing everything alone. Now, I can't do anything with people without getting slightly irritated. I just like to go at my own speed.
At Bella the Bear 777 wrote,
I read through most of the comments. Prayers for the ones that struggle. Just saying hello as you pass others in the stores be the change you want.
At user PV8XT2LX10 wrote,
When your country is sending billions to fund Israel's genocide, instead of spending that money on improving U.S. society, I don't blame people for getting angry. This was the worst take I've heard you have on your channel. Ew.
At Cheryl Shorey 9057 wrote,
I think people got lazy, mean, and antisocial. Too many got addicted to sitting on their butt and dealing with themselves. I think there is something more to it as to why so many kids jumped on the trans train. Maybe a crazy thought, but we were forced to stay home and everyone's new best friend was their phones, computers, and laptops, and who knows the fallout from that.
A Shocker Topper wrote,
You're right about the lockdown affecting people. However, you neglected to mention its effect on elderly. My father was definitely changed by it, and at the time he was 76. It absolutely felt like the whole thing just zapped him of his aspirations in life. He stopped talking about the future and what he was going to do, and became very pessimistic. It didn't help that in 2022, he was hospitalized for 1/2 months because of severe lung problems as a result of walking pneumonia and extremely bad COVID. During his time in the hospital, I made sure to see him almost every day, and maybe didn't about 10 to 12 days of that. His talk of wishing he had not made it afterwards was kind of alarming. However, he would often bring up how he hated the way the world had become as a whole. In October of last year, he started feeling pretty bad, and within a few weeks, he was unable to eat or keep food down. He was never one to go to the hospital and would tough things out instead, which is something I took after. I've been in 3 motorcycle accidents, all going 65 to 70 miles per hour, and went for the first one only. The other 2, I just tended to my own wounds, 3rd-degree burns from road rash. I inherited double bone density from him, so despite getting wrecked in general growing up, I never broke a bone. However, I did break my feet and hands because of the size of the bones in those areas, and just 7 to 8 on both occasions. Anyways, my father ended up seeing his doctor after 3 weeks of not eating with the exception of crackers and some water, having roughly 2,000 calories in each week after getting sick. His doctor prescribed him a medication for his esophagus. However, things didn't get any better and 3 more weeks passed. Eventually, after a total of 2 months being ill, when he was barely able to eat 1,000 calories a week, he finally went to the ER to be seen. It turned out his hernia had been neglected to take care of, had ruptured partially, and food had gotten into it, causing a serious infection. They did an outpatient surgery of sorts, but kept him 2 days to watch him. So it was thought to be the hernia, and emergency surgery was scheduled. 2 weeks out, though. To speed up the lead up to his passing, he basically had the surgery, and they detached the hernia from his right lung, and were able to get it back into where it was originally. His lack of sustenance over 2 months at that OO.
At haunted_lunchbox wrote,
This is so interesting. I've definitely seen the shift. Hopefully there's a solution. People are far too lonely even though we're more connected than ever. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I hope we can get back to enjoying each other's company, meeting new people, and not being afraid of new experiences.
Epixietra70 wrote,
Hi, Amir. Firstly, Tisma for the work you do in calling out societal issues. You are greatly appreciated. Secondly, lockdown had a whole different impact if you were in healthcare. As a veteran nurse over 25 years at the time, some of us worked feverishly to care for our patients, many times in horrible conditions, while everyone else was encouraged to stay home and avoid social contact. We were forced to accept skinily tested vaccines IDC what anyone else says, to continue working. Many of us the only income for our families and couldn't afford to NOT work because healthcare workers were specifically excluded from government subsidies during the pandemic. And while I worked 18-hour days to save grandma, her grandchildren were condemning me for being out and about while I should be sheltering in place. Really? It's no wonder social media exploded into prevalence, thus setting the stage for stunted social skills, the willingness to be swayed by a vocal and usually volatile minority, political and otherwise, and general social malaise. So is it truly all that incredible to believe how we wound up with the huge clusterfuck that our world is slogging through?
At Mickey2137 wrote,
I'm in my 40s, and I became my true self from COVID. It pushed me to be more real and more confident, and to not cower and stand in my convictions, no matter the price. I had no idea that I was capable of actually being that way. Now it's my permanent way of being. I do facials for a living, and I worked part-time at 4 different spas before COVID. I refused to go back to any of them because I refused to wear a mask. I wouldn't back down on that. One of my 4 jobs allowed me to still work there and turned a blind eye to wearing a mask, but they only had enough business for me to work 1 to 2 days a week. I broke up with my husband at the end of 2020 despite the financial hardship it would bring. For all of 2021, I only worked part-time at that one spa job plus doing a little bit of DoorDash part-time, living off of my savings and the money my husband was giving me each month, but our agreement was he was only giving me money for 1 year. I also went through a spiritual awakening starting in Jan of 2021. I went through my first and longest dark night of the soul in Jan of 2021. That year I did 5 minutes vacations. I never in my life have gone on more than just 1 trip in a year, Some years I don't go on vacation at all. But that year I did 5 road trips going to Florida, NC twice, VA once, and Vermont visiting different friends. 21 was a great year for me in that it felt like my most expansive, and it was ALL about me. What I wanted to do. First time in my life I wasn't working 40 plus hours a week, and I did only part-time work for an entire year. I have no idea how I afforded all of those trips lol, but it was great. I was 44 years old that year, and I wish I could go back to it, TBH. But since then, what COVID taught me about career is never cave on your principles for a paycheck and do what you love, and only in an environment that loves you right back. Last year I got a job at a wellness center, and it's the best place I ever worked. During COVID, they didn't abide by any mandates, no masks, nothing. I wish I had worked there during those years. It's so interesting now working in a place where all of my coworkers and most of the clients saw COVID exactly the same way I did and behaved the same way I did. Because during COVID in my world, it was rare I came across someone who was defying everything.
At Bird King 9859 wrote,
I spent ages 10 to 20 in isolation because my mom was crazy, and just now in my 30s, am I trying extra hard to gain the social skills I lost out on. I never got to be young. I could see that lockdowns would be similar to how I grew up, yet I was viewed as a horrible person for questioning things. I feel so bad that kids, teens, and young adults are struggling the way I had to. I hope we can bounce back and become a friendlier society again.
At Travelin' Light 1141 wrote,
1935 completely agree, not just the art of small talk, but having an insane litmus test for a new friendship. You don't have to agree with everything someone thinks because I promise you, given enough time, you won't.
At Marilag Labagcaseo 9773 wrote,
I go out alone a lot of the time since my husband is working nights. He's asleep during the day. I won't be able to do a lot of things if I wait for him. As for the lockdown, I thrived.
And Norma Voighton 3208 wrote,
I have 3 kids, 12, 13, and 19. And one rule I have is they have to talk to me in complete sentences. Once in a while, they'll say some random phrase to me, and I remind them, complete sentences.
At Jacob 2761 wrote,
To me, it wasn't the lockdowns that messed me up. I was a freshman in college and started working at Home Depot when everything shut down. I was very busy throughout the whole quarantine. I made more money than I ever did, bought a car, and kinda established my own freedom. My and my GF got an apartment not together, but next door to each other, and everything was great. It wasn't till after lockdown and everything started to open up that was weird being with my GF next door. We were always together and ended up breaking up, and getting back into the dating world was actually crazy.
At Danasaurus Grex wrote,
All it did for me is I noticed people are more on the level now. I've been called a lot of things for about a decade because I've been saying the government goes out of their way to not only steal from you, but to harm you. And COVID was just the last haya. They either took over then or people would start to see the light. And fortunately, the people who called me a pessimist was right, because I thought we were going to be under lockdown for the rest of our lives. But it turns out people are finally starting to come around to the idea that the government isn't protecting you, they're doing the opposite. All the other stuff I can't relate to. I was a chef during COVID, so I still had to work. It was just me and the other chef all day cooking to-go orders. Then I'd go home. I didn't even follow the rules. I just kept going about my business. It was like I had the world to myself.
It was nice.
A brown acid wrote,
I feel like I lost my family during the pandemic. Some physically, but all mentally. I am the only one unvax BTW. They either hate me or are afraid that I will get them sick to this day. Or that I am a Nazi.
as Charlotte Harris 5914 wrote,
I just had a thought. Since COVID affected the entire global society, we are no longer living in the year 2025 ADRC, but instead, we are actually living in the year 5 AC after COVID.
a Doctork 1708 wrote,
Trump made it okay to be rude, mean to everyone. He also let more than 400,000 plus people die from his COVID failure. The pandemic occurred during Jay's term.
at Blue Tommy's 7697 wrote,
TPL are distant now. We don't greet each other and PPL stay home more. Streets are empty. Coffee shops are empty. PPL got so used to no effort that in a way everything is too much now. Campgrounds are empty too. It's sad.
at Rakisnip wrote,
I think people don't trust each other as much as they used to because COVID put us in survival/selfish mode all of a sudden, and we saw truths come out such as some people would rather put another person at risk of passing away rather than temporarily inconvenience themselves. Some people wanted to protect themselves in different ways, and if they didn't agree, they would excommunicate their friends and family from mistrust. Some people would hoard more than they could possibly need, knowingly, whilst others went without. Then they would try and use their desperation to exploit the vulnerable financially. Some people realized we were doing stuff because the government and society had us believe there was no other way, such as work-life balance. But then it was proved that was a lie, and we could have had a better balance all along and society would still function. People who worked for government repeatedly exposed for lying, being selfish, following their own rules. Us putting our trust in them and finding out we sacrificed things like not being with someone in their last living moments, trying to do the right thing, whilst the people that said to do it was risking the health of others just to party. Now we know we sacrificed so much of our lives all this time for our society, and we didn't need to. We trusted blindly, and we shouldn't have. Now everyone is on edge for the next time something similar happens. Community dissolves into anarchy, and it's everyone for themselves. Kindness gets taken advantage of. Media and government is full of lies, and you never know who will be the first to stab you in the back. Maybe if nothing bad happens for a long time, we can trust more in society again. But media and government will have to be consistently transparent to gain back the level of trust they used to have.
a John Toller 6838 wrote,
People don't know how to engage in small talk in bars. People are afraid to say, yo, what's up? Want to play some beer pong with us? This generation of people is so weird.
as Sturmtrupp 1917 wrote,
People lost the ability to pay attention to anything that lasts longer than a minute, especially the kids. Seems like 3/4 of the population has the attention span of a goldfish post-COVID. I'm so glad my parents let me be bored and figure out how to entertain myself when I was a kid. This is coming from a Gen Z.
Chris 418 wrote,
I agree with the gentleman that said no one has matters. So true. No one even knows how to properly shake a hand or want to shake hands when meeting someone. In general, no matters, period. I live in the South where you grew up with manners. To me, social media was false connections, and now people don't know how to connect in real life. They want to live on socials. I agree with other guy. No one knows what small talk. But no one knows how to have civilized, calm adult conversations. If your opinion is different, people jump down your throat. Free thinking is gone, for sure. June 19th, 2020 was the worst day of my life. I lost the most important person in my life. Their death was not due to the virus. I was dealing with dearth. It hurt so bad that in the sec, I realized that I needed to go to grief therapy. I did in Jan 2021. Worst year since meteorite hit Earth and killed dinosaurs.
At Rachel Goldsberry 201 wrote,
During COVID, I was pregnant with my third child in a manger at Jet's Pizza. I honestly just thought that it was a bunch of BS. I worked my ass off full time. I always tried my best to get out of wearing a mask at work. Never worn one to the store. Even though I thought it was BS, the fact that so many people took it so serious, though, made me feel super awkward around people. And people would look at me judgy for not wearing a mask. What I've noticed from people at large that's lasted since then, I think we're all more socially awkward than before distant. Plus, no one trusts the media since COVID, which is why podcasts are so popular. And now that that's happened, when I think about a career, I always want it to be something that's needed, in case this happens again. That's about it. Oh, and I've gotten COVID twice. I felt like I was going to die both times. And I'm very healthy. So if someone has COVID, I'm paranoid AF.
As Lamina 1212 wrote,
I know you were talking about late teens and early 20s, but my son was the first kindergarten class after the pandemic. And his kindergarten teacher, her even told us parents at the end of the year that this kindergarten class was very different from anything she's ever seen. That they are really stick on personal space. That they don't allow other kids close to them. She said for the most part, even girl besties do too even hold hands like she's always seen. They are very to themselves.
At Mickey2137 wrote,
There was already a virtue signaling culture that took hold before COVID, but it amped up way more during and after. Everyone must now have a take on the current thing, the current world event, even though the majority of people know very little information on it. Not enough to make a real opinion on it. And if you don't have an opinion, y estaba a apitura de la paso aquei de los acasas para desesperarse tu monte postado, then you are immediately cut off from these people. Disowned. You are the worst person in the world, even though the people who engage like this are the ones acting in bad faith and not in a loving or tolerant way.
At Morgan Reeds 25 wrote,
100% think manners are disappearing. I went to Chipotle a few weeks ago, and the employees were on their phones and looked pissed off that I had the audacity to get a bowl.
At Roxy 555 wrote,
My husband always compliments other guys on their beard. It's so funny how men are about their beard, but I get it. I love if someone likes anything in me. Being kind doesn't cost anything.
Catademu wrote,
COVID definitely fast-tracked the atomization of society. It seemed to amplify whatever was quietly taking root under the surface. I also still feel in a time warp, but investing in tangible community is such a healer.
At Abby Jones wrote,
I was a brand new essential worker in my 20s who had just started emergency staffing for a very big delivery company, living in a small rented room in a couple's house. We weren't allowed to work from home at all. For me, I had the opposite experience of most, where I had to talk to hundreds of irritated, desperate people every day with no time for my own thoughts. I had to drive carefully down the freeway, where protesters gathered on multiple occasions. So as an introvert, I never understood why people complained so much about being home. Haha. Many went on pause, but my life went into scary overdrive with no breaks. It has been a 4-year journey, but I am now healing from the agoraphobia I developed because I saw the real version of things that were not filtered through the news.
And Norma Voighton 3208 wrote,
COVID lockdowns affected my teenage son. He was 13 in 2020. To the point in 2022 he needed counseling for anxiety. He never was anxious, and a doctor tried prescribing him Zoloft. Has doing great now and has his old stoic and playful personality back. I'm worried there are a lot of kids whose parents would give them that medicine, so now they will be affected even more by having altered their brain chemistry so drastically at such a young age. More money for Big Pharma though, so why would government care?
Echemicascult 1948 wrote,
I couldn't relate less to this video. Quarantine honestly ruined my life. I couldn't finish high school because of COVID, and I ended up literally shutting myself from the entire world. I lost all my friends, I lost how to communicate with others, so it's so much harder to communicate. I gained so much weight I can't lose, etc. I feel like the only people who had a great time during COVID were really privileged, 'cause for me, COVID ruined me.
At Leslie Brown 1517 wrote,
Work was already going remote prior to the lockdowns. I worked in an essential company, so we just kept on going. What I hated more than anything was going outside on walks or hikes and having to turn aside so you wouldn't breathe on anyone. Because I have a dog, I always step aside anyway, but it was nuts. Also, people wouldn't even pet my dog. He needed the socializing as much as I did. I retired and moved to a new state where they never had lockdowns, and I'm so much happier now.
At Suddenly Peniables 5169 wrote,
Since COVID and my own cancer treatment, I've noticed that the world's felt quieter, emptier, and just more closed off. It feels like anyone could genuinely forget other people exist.
At Mickey 2137 wrote,
What I think is the most stunning is a segment of the population is permanently broken into the fear of it, and they are not ever coming out of the virtue signaling and the extreme fear. Panic and precautions. They are in a perm state of severe cognitive dissonance, and there doesn't seem to ever be coming back from it, while the majority of people are mostly back to how life was before.
At Eric Shipman 5769 wrote,
That one cat around the 8-minute mark talking about feeling like being in the wrong timelines. I totally feel that way too. Like to the point I felt crazy sometimes. How did I just slip into this timeline?
Ken Kick wrote,
I've been a DJ for a long time. I used to have residencies at some big clubs there. I moved from there north and started doing smaller lounges and bars, and I can tell you post-pandemic, no one goes out. The nightlife has dropped a ton. If I do a day gig, it's poppin' off, but as far as people going out, it's crazy slow now. There's definitely a different dynamic for the day parties. It's more like a kick it, not people going out to meet new people.
At Livewire 464 wrote,
Quarantine was the best time in every introvert's lives. It showed us a way of peace we didn't know was possible now. We never want to let it go. Extroverts have become accustomed to feeding off of us. And now that we're not allowing it, they don't know how to cope.
At Maslovskian wrote,
Comments about feeling like others are looking at them like they're a conspiracy theorist. I feel that. The more I learn about what's going on in this country, the more I realize the conspiracy theorists were right. It's a weird feeling to read legislation and see what's being posted on NOAA and see the general population of this country not only unaware, but laughing at the folks who are aware. I totally agree with you, though, that we can't live in a 24/7 data stream of news. It's not healthy. However, sometimes it feels like if I don't keep my eyes on the ball, these F-Andalat are going to take it. Or infect it with their next pandemic.
At RockFox TLIMS wrote,
I absolutely agree with the complimenting. I need to do it more, and we should all try to do it more. I think that would make a noticeable difference in society.
At Which Me wrote,
I don't have a friend group.
and I realized I never did. And I am happier. I think maybe a lot of people feel this way. It's not that I don't like hanging out with people, it's just that I now only really do that when I go to yoga and keep it lighthearted. Because if I don't, people try to make their problems into my problems.
Ed Avery Armis wrote,
I think it's because the pandemic, amongst other things around this time, was pivotal, and the government almost forced people for the sake of their lives to become political. We have been forced into so much division that many people believe they don't know how to have small talk due to the rational fear of being treated differently if something they say gives away what leaning they may be, and then being socially rejected. Everything has become politicized.
At Mickey2137 wrote,
I love complimenting people, but I make a point to only do genuine compliments. I only compliment what I genuinely like. I don't do fake or kiss ass, but yay. Complimenting people puts so much more love and positivity out there, and also in your own self.
At American Illuminati wrote,
For the first chick's uneducated comment. If you're an introvert, you can't just pretend to be an extrovert. That's not how it works. Introversion isn't just being shy. It's a literal aversion to public spaces, gatherings, and flamboyant activities, and oftentimes an aversion to socializing in general. It can be emotionally draining, mentally taxing, and usually just outright boring to be around other people, or chattering with other people for extended periods of time. It has a lot to do with your psychological patterns. Are your thoughts generally inwardly directed or outwardly directed? People's entire existence is inwardly generated, and for others it's externally generated. Some people are perfectly satisfied sitting at home, with a cup of hot chocolate, watching a show or reading a book. Other people will say they're not living life like that.
At Zarina3276 wrote,
I try to compliment people, but the last person I complimented said nothing and just gave me a death stare of like, yes, B*TCH. I know I look good. Almost made me verbally take the compliment back.
Castle 843 wrote,
Complimenting strangers is the biggest life hack. I've always sucked at being approachable, but this has helped me so much. Especially if you're running out of things to say in a surface-level conversation. Edit, sometimes, the conversation starts meaning something if you compliment something about themselves that they really like. Perfect for getting to know a coworker.
At Adolwiship4 wrote,
I was an essential worker. The world didn't really charge for me. The workplace doesn't require you being terminally ill to call in sick now. And traffic was beautiful. I do miss that. Even now, the world doesn't feel very different for me. But as I said during the lockdown, I was still going to work every day.
Cass the Stinky Chicken wrote,
2 to 3 weeks prior on the TP. Oh, you sweet summer child. I still have TP from 2020, ha ha ha. Buy what you can that will not spoil and keep tea safe. I was able to give my TP to my neighbors, and 1. Develop great relationships, and 2. Trade for things I needed, things you should have in your storage, paper goods, food, pet food, clothes, fabric, water, medication, vitamins, etc. Look, I'm not a doomsday person, but I have used this excess through the lean times in my life and shared with family and friends over the years.
At Chance Brown 106 wrote,
COVID was the most overt playing in my face event I'd ever experienced. I was 30 years old and 7 years into Jove security. However, 10 months into the pandemic, it was wearing on my mind with a lessened work productivity, and so I pursued my master's. 4 years later, and several setbacks later, I'm in my final year. I should be done by now, but considering that the concept of time was all but taken away in COVID, I'm finding myself unable to care. COVID killed less than self-motivated people.
At NVDson wrote,
Also, no small talk anymore. We can partly blame that on Me Too. While it did denounce harassers and aggressors, which was the initial goal, and thankfully it happened for that, it made it so far that now, if you're not someone's type, you'll get labelled creep or even worse, becoming a societal target.
At Desert Nebula wrote,
I'm still watching. But the tinfoil hat gang were on to the shenanigans. Then that week everything shut down, Sears closed down. But my boyfriend was the few to bring home months of toilet paper, cleaning supplies, etc. So we had supplies for 3 damn years. What are the odds the day? Everything shut down hiking. I still went hiking, did my thing. Met people.
Esancio wrote,
This applies to young mums too. Take your kids out alone and often. Take them to the library, the park, the coffee shop. You will meet other mums and just compliment their kids. Ask how old their kids are, etc. Mums love bragging about their kids. Also, compliment a mum doing their best. I'm an introvert and I started doing this when my first child was born. I now have a circle of mum friends, ride or die friends. Did it always work? No, it didn't. But sometimes it did. It's hard and scary, but you can do it.
At Madison Mason 2424 wrote,
I was a senior and girl let MD tell you COVID was a fun-ass time. I did a lot of fuck shit, learned a lot about myself, and honestly, I don't regret any of it.
At Aberoni 205 wrote,
As a millennial, the COVID times were awesome and really helped me deal with burnout. A lot of millennials have been constantly hustling and suffering to just live since college. It was the first time I was forced to pause and care for myself.
Tristan Sinanju wrote,
I've found that a conversation style where you don't have to say anything bad about something, provide a positive alternative that you prefer, will push the conversation into positive directions instead of an argument P.
At Maxo Biggie Papa wrote,
I don't know, in my small Texas town, it's the same. Some false illness didn't change the character of the people where I live, thankfully. Although I do believe I became a much more introverted person for sure.
At Oddendarkle 3706 wrote,
I worked in a supermarket in a utility position during COVID, and let me tell you how irritable and entitled most people are. From the mob created by the vaxxed ones to the lack of adequate communication. It's as if society has been set back by decades in a span of 3 years, which I theorized was intentionally by design by the powers that be.
Cenobite 3 wrote,
Genuine compliments feel good to get, but they also feel so good to give. Us women can make friends just by being kind to each other in a bar restroom.
At Nubius Maximus 6314 wrote,
The whole thing can be summarized as social trust is gone. Compliments to strangers should feel good, but will they take that a weird way? I don't know. Particularly in cities too.
@HD 379 wrote,
1630, I loved it. 9 to 5 job. I get salary, so it was heaven. My hours were shorter, and I even got to close for a week straight waiting for everything to be COVID friendly. I got to paint. I got binge watch a ton of shows, including watching The Office for the first time, staying up hella late, because I didn't need to work the next day. Bruh, that was a blast and a much needed vacation.
At Flying Furby I7H wrote,
The most important thing is the deeper layers of society and our collective journey becoming visible. First, on a societal level, the mind control, divide strategies, dark political agendas, how rotten Hollywood / the elite are, and the symbols they use. How we've been tricked and manipulated. Then comes the spiritual aspect of it. How this works energetically, interdimensionally, our internal world, and which path we choose. Many people turn to religion or New Age because they see there is more. IMO part of the trap, as they want a one world religion and harvest our energy through systems like these. But we need to take responsibility and remember our true essence, which we've been severed from. Genuine enlightenment, trust, calmness is not found in a system, but within. C0 vid was so crazy that when you see it, you can't unsee it. It all happened for a reason, one big earthly plan.
At NVDSyn wrote, pretend to be extrovert. Try saying that to an autistic introvert like myself. I wasn't that much of a social butterfly to start with, but pandemic made me even less social and got my confidence in the gutter. Governmental control sucks in general, but 2 years being told what to do, especially in Montreal, Quebec, which was pretty much considered the capital residency of King COVID-19, made me gut my social skills in general. Either that, or it's me getting older and more bitter, lol. At Miss_Believer wrote,
Honestly, I had a great time during lockdown. I was in my early teens, homeschooled, and my parents and friends weren't too concerned about getting sick. I had multiple sleepovers a week, practically lived outside, and ran wild. It was amazing. It did, however, start opening my eyes to conspiracy theories, because even I, a dumb 14-year-old, could see that something with the pandemic just didn't really line up.